All right, guys, we are back to lesson 3 on the chapter 5 about the French and Indian War. And remember, once again, it is between the British and the French. There are Native Americans involved on both sides, but that is not the meaning of the war. It's also called the 7 Years' War. Remember that for the test. We had talked about all the way through the fighting and everything, and then we had General Amherst and we had General Wolfe taking the fight to Canada, and that's when the French lose interest in the war. And after Amherst goes up to Montreal, you have the French back out. There's still going to be a couple years of fighting, but it's going to be overseas. It's going to be in Africa, India, and the Caribbean is where the fighting's going on. But the fighting does not stop here because the Native Americans have this idea. Remember, each time there was a surrender, they didn't understand it, and it led to scalping. Well, when the French back out of this, they don't understand it because people are still alive. In the Native Americans' mind, you fight till one side is dead. Terms of surrender aren't easy to sign because your hands are chopped off at that point. I mean, that is the way their mindset is. And so since they were still involved in this fight, it's not over in their mind. And at this point, General Amherst, the guy who takes Montreal, he goes on a building spree like you have never seen. He is popping forts up all over the Ohio River Valley. Why is he doing this? The settlers want this. Because if you remember when they had that kidnapping going on and they were stealing all the people and everything, that would have been very dangerous and very nerve-wracking to live at that time. And so what they want is a fort within a couple days' ride. That way, if I hear the Native Americans are restless, they're stealing children again, I'm going to be honest, I'm taking my children, I'm going to a fort until this is over. Because if I'm at my cabin, there is no way I'm protecting my family. I mean, I may kill a few of them, but I will lose my children and I will lose my life. So the settlers that are in this area want very badly to have forts in this area. So you're seeing them pop up there, rebuild Fort Pitt after they had burned it up there when it was Fort Duquesne at the time when the French owned it. You're seeing forts are going to pop up down in Fort Loudon. This is when Fort Loudon is going to pop up during the French and Indian War. But after the war's over, forts are just popping up, bam, 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 all over the area. This Native American named Chief Pontiac, he is from Michigan area, and a fort pops up in Detroit. That's his backyard. He is not happy about this at all. Then a fort pops up on Michilimackinac is what they call it. It means, a Native American word, it means the great turtle. We call it Mackinac today. And if you go up to right above Michigan into the Great Lakes, there is an island called Mackinac Island. It looks like a big turtle, the way it just humps up out of the water in the Great Lakes. The Great Lakes are massive. You need to see them one day to understand how large they are, and it's against the border of Canada. How large are they? You could pick up the state of Tennessee and throw it into Lake Superior, and it would disappear. It's bigger than our state, one lake. There's one spot in Lake Superior. They don't know how deep it is. It's like the Marianas Trench out in the Pacific. They can't measure how deep it is. So they are up in the Great Lakes, and this is a sacred island to the Native Americans because it's out there in the Great Lakes. And now the English have built a fort on that. This is angering Pontiac even further. Pontiac, at this time, ends up having a vision, one of those dreams that just stay with you and everything. And in his vision, in his dream, he sees himself leading several tribes to be able to take back over the English and kick them out and make America, once again, a Native American nation. And in his dream, he sees how he's going to do this. And I'll be honest, he came very close, that close to it working, and we would be in a Native American land right now. So, what does his vision include? Here we go. On June 2nd of 1763, well, the British are on the island, Mackinac Island, at the fort, and Fort Michilimackinac, they were using the whole word at that time, and the Native Americans, 3 whole tribes come rowing over on canoes to the island. Now, if you're a settler and you're in this cabin, you're in the fort, you're nervous because all of a sudden there is Native Americans all over. That's a massive fort and everything there on the island because it's a strategic spot as all get out. But the Native Americans, when they show up, they do not attack the fort. They gather outside in the open area and they begin to play a game. The game that they're going to play is called lacrosse. Lacrosse is a Native American word that literally means little war. The Native Americans in this day and age, if we had a problem to where my tribe and your tribe are disputing over something and we go to war, my tribe and your tribe are going to lose a lot of people. People are going to die. And we don't want that. Or if we even go to war, I'm going to lose a lot of people. You're going to lose a lot of people. But then there's going to be a lot of people physically deformed the rest of their life, because we're talking fighting with tomahawks, axes, war clubs. So you're going to have several people missing an arm, missing a leg, broken jaws that never heal. It's going to be quite nasty if we go to war. So the Native Americans, if it got to the point of almost war, but they didn't want to go all the way to war, the two tribes would come together, take like 25 guys on each side, put them on a field, and they would play lacrosse. And the winner then settled that right there, and that's who was the winner of the battle. And the reason it's like a battle and it actually will decide who it is, because lacrosse is played today, but it is nothing like what they played back then. They have these sticks that are about the size, about that big around, and they're hot. They look like a hockey stick, but they have a cup on the end. They sew deer sinew into like a little netting, and they put a ball on the ground, and then you can pick the ball up, run with it in the cup of the stick. And as you run with it, you can throw it to another friend over there, and they can try and catch it and run with it, and you try and get it in the goal. So you're going to have 50 guys running around on a field with sticks in their hands trying to make a goal. Here's the thing, though. There are no rules. And so if I come running at you with the stick and I slam you in the face with it and teeth go flying out, that's legal. That's part of the game. If I run up behind you and just club you in the back of the head and you fall down, there's a gash on your head and you're bleeding, part of the game. Hitting each other. If you watch the video here in a minute, you'll see blindside hits are completely legal even in today's. And it's like hockey even today. If two guys get into a fight, they can fight as long as they're standing up. Once one of them hits the ground, then it's over. So it's a very brutal sport even today. But it was a sport to where if you put 50 guys in a thing and they're fighting it out, you're going to have 20 people with broken bones. People are going to hurt. People are going to be very hurt. But no one's going to die. You're not going to be physically deformed for life, missing an arm. You may have broken arm. That can be reset. That can get better. It may not be perfect because of the medicine in this day and age, but you still had your arm. And so lacrosse was the way the Native Americans decided a lot of disputes among themselves. And these Native Americans, 3 tribes show up, and they begin to do lacrosse out in the open field right in front of the fort. And I cannot imagine what this looked like. The guys in the forts, they're looking down, they see this, and I'm going to tell you exactly how it would have went down. It's like watching a car wreck out in front. You're going to stare. You're going to look. Lacrosse is an MMA fight with sticks in their hands, is what is going on. And once the lacrosse game breaks out, all the soldiers in the fort are up on the parapets, hanging over the line, watching it. Now, they've got their guns in their hands. They're nervous because the Native Americans are out there. But the battle in front of the fort is going to go on for 3 hours, which isn't crazy long, because there were times huge tribes, when it gets huge tribes, and the lacrosse game would go for 3 days. It was a serious thing of beating each other up to the point nobody, walking, but nobody's dying and nobody's physically deformed for the rest of their life. As you're watching this go on, these guys in the fort, they begin to just, you can see it. I begin to lean my rifle against this part, and I'm hanging over the fence. Yeah. Oh, look at that hit. Talking with my buddies. Did you see that guy got his teeth knocked out? And I'm into it. And I'm going to be into it. Guarantee you watch the video in a second. I showed the video in my classes today. Half the kids are sleeping and stuff like that. Once I pushed the button on the video, every kid set up and they were sitting there watching people like a train wreck get destroyed. And so when you watch this video in a minute, you'll see what we're talking about. And that's calm version of what they're seeing. So the soldiers are watching it, and you want to get closer. You want to see what's going on. So what do the soldiers do? They open the doors of the fort and they inch out. And they inch out further and further. And now they're standing out in the field. They're watching this battle go down. And then Pontiac's like, now! And all the Native Americans go rushing in through the open doors into the fort. And on their side, they have their tomahawks that they have not pulled out, because you don't use that in lacrosse. And they begin to destroy the British soldiers at that time. They totally take the fort. They destroy the fort, because it's hard to attack a fort unless you get them to lay down their guns and open the doors. And this is what Pontiac saw in his vision as the way to do this. And it worked. And so they go to another fort like Detroit, and they do it again, and it works. There's like 25 forts all across the Ohio River Valley at this time. They goes to the next one, it works. It goes to the next one, it works. It goes to the next one, it works. Chief Pontiac, and this is why they name a car after him, because of his genius with this. Only 3 forts in the entire area do not fall for this. Only 3 forts did not open their doors. That was a genius move right there on his behalf. And so Pontiac does something the French didn't even come close to doing. Pontiac almost takes back America for the Native Americans. He was 3 forts away from, like I say, this being Native American land right now. At this point, General Amherst, the one who took Montreal, feels horrible because he was the guy in charge of all these forts, and now he looks like an idiot, doesn't he? So General Amherst actually goes and buys a whole bunch of blankets and then takes them to Chief Pontiac and says, listen, we're down to 3 forts. We've been having problems. We need some peace. I brought you a peace offering. Here are some blankets. Gives them to Chief Pontiac to pass out to all those 3 tribes that are huge with him and taking back over America. General Amherst has taken the blankets beforehand and went to smallpox victims and rubbed the blankets all over the smallpox and then folded them back up and gave them to the Native Americans. Now the Native Americans have smallpox. And remember I said the Native Americans were going to fight until there was no side left, and they had almost done that to us. And then we wiped them out with chemical warfare. It was a horrible jerk move by General Amherst because it's not soldier fighting soldier. Now women, old people, children, they're all dying from smallpox. I mean, you wipe out several tribes up in the Michigan area. It was a destruction like you've never seen. But Pontiac came so close. But when those tribes are gone, French and Indian War is officially done at this point with everything. That is Chief Pontiac on your left right there. And on the right is a painting of them attacking the fort. And you can see the Native Americans just rushing right on in. And then the guys that had already walked outside are being attacked and killed. That is General Amherst on your left. And if you look above it, there is a letter of his where he is actually bragging about, and if you look in the red box, giving the smallpox to these people. So he thought it was a brilliant move, quite of a jerk move. Treaty of Paris. Now, you need to understand the Treaty of Paris name because it will confuse you. What ends the French and Indian War? The Treaty of Paris. What ends the Revolutionary War? The Treaty of Paris. So you have to watch the dates. It's this Treaty of Paris 1763 or later the Treaty of Paris 1787. So know the name Treaty of Paris. That's where they go, the city they go to sign these things to end all this in. But it will show up later in the next chapter as the ending of the Revolutionary War also. Now what happens at this point? The Proclamation of 1763 is issued out then after the Treaty of Paris. England has won the war. They are very, very happy about this. They're fine. Okay? The Proclamation of 1763 says this: the Native Americans have helped us. I mean, the Cherokee were on the English side. You had the Mohawk on their side. You had the Iroquois on their side, all helping them. And so you need to give them a little reward. And so what they do is they take the Appalachian Mountains that come down the side of America. That is the dividing line. And England owns all the way from the Atlantic to the Mississippi now, because we took that from France. And so we're going to go from the Appalachians to the Mississippi and give it to the Native Americans. Y'all, this is like 3 times the size of what England keeps. They give away the bulk of the land to the Native Americans. I know we talk about America, we came over here and we stole land and stole land. There are several times we actually give it back. And so the war, the Revolutionary War, will change this and everything. But there is a point. They didn't come over here and just try to abuse the Native Americans and steal their land. There was a partnership. There was agency going back and forth between these. And we gave it back to them. Now, the Native Americans are very happy at this point. The English are very happy. They beat the French. They love that. There's one group that is not happy at all. And that's the colonists. The colonists, I want you to think about this. They came over the Appalachians. They carved out land with the trees and built a farm and built the house with their own hands. And this is the side we live on. And all of a sudden they're told that's no longer your home. You get up and leave. You got to be gone by tomorrow morning. If the Native Americans want your cabin, they can have it. Can you imagine if it was Treaty of Paris 2021? We're on the other side of the Appalachians. And we get a proclamation today, hey, you need to leave your home. leave everything behind, head back to where, other side of the Appalachians, start all over. Sorry. Colonists are mad about this. They view this as an act of tyranny. Tyranny is when the king or the leader goes too far. And the people want to rise up and go, you ain't doing that to me. I will die before I'm going to do that. It's kind of like if a president today ordered confiscation of all guns. Monroe County is going to view it as an act of tyranny. There's going to be people that will say, pry it from my cold dead hands. And I think we all know that in this county. There are people that would view that as an act of tyranny. The colonists view this as an act of tyranny. You just gave away my house. You gave away my land to settle a dispute you had. So they are very upset by the proclamation of 1763. Moving on, if you can see right there, you see the colonies the way it was beforehand, and then you see on the right, you can see where the American colonies are, and all the purple is given over to the Native Americans. I mean, holy crud, man. We gave it back. We gave it back at that point. We're going to get to what happened with Fort Loudon. I'm just going to get a little bit into this today, but you need to understand what's going on in Tennessee. People are coming over here. They come over as early as 1673. That's only 53 years past the Pilgrims starting, is your first two white settlers to come into Tennessee. That was James Needleman and Gabriel Arthur. They come over here, they get involved with a Native American, and he kills one of them, cuts their heart out, and he tries to burn alive Gabriel Arthur. And then another Cherokee comes in and stops it and sets Gabriel free. And so you see the bad and the good on both sides right there. But that's the first interaction with that. And then you start to see long hunters coming over. Long hunters are men that are going to leave their area, and they are the ones that never have a home. They will walk all the way over the Appalachian Mountains, come to Tennessee, hunt for 6 months, kill like 150 bear, skin out the hides, tan the hides, strap them to something, and go walk back up over the mountains, sell them, turn around, walk back. Tennessee has got some of the bravest, toughest men you've ever seen in Tennessee at this time, and they are called long hunters. I will give you just a brief description of one. We don't know much about him, but what we do know is quite amazing. There is a long hunter by the name of Thomas Sharp Spencer. Thomas Sharp Spencer goes by the name Bigfoot Spencer. Why do they call him Bigfoot? Well, the Native Americans had that tradition of what we call a Sasquatch today and everything like that, and they referred to his big feet and things like that. So the word Bigfoot was already out there, but what happens, Thomas Spencer never wore shoes. He literally walks over the Appalachians barefoot. They find footprints through the snow, him barefoot all the time. I want you to realize how callous those feet would have had to have been. I mean, doesn't wear shoes. And so they see in the mud and in the snow these big footprints. And so they referred to him as Bigfoot Spencer. We don't know how tall he was because we're only getting descriptions from people that dealt with him. We know he's over 6 foot tall, which is a mountain of a man in that day and age. And are you ready for this? This is the part that it just boggles my mind. I can't really understand it. Bigfoot Spencer weighed 400 pounds. And there ain't an ounce of fat on the man. This is a man who literally walks over the Appalachians a couple times a year, cuts trees all day long if he's going to have firewood in his camp that night. If he's going to have a camp that night, he has to cut these things down. He's killing bear, doing this all by himself. This is a mountain of a man at 400 pounds, over 6 foot tall, all muscles, huge, huge arms. They said he came over the mountains one time, and he was hunting in this area, and a guy came with him, and the guy was scared, didn't want any more to do with it, and said, hey, we're going to divide up our stuff. I'm going to go back. You stay here. We'll say, that's fine. And they're dividing it up. They're like, we got 10 pounds of shot. You take 5, I'll take 5. We got 2 axes. You take 1, I'll take 1. They only had one skinning knife, a big Bowie knife. And the story goes, because we know the other half shows back up of the knife, Bigfoot Spencer says, well, we only have one knife, and goes snap and broke a blade in his hand like that. Is anybody, their mind is blown? You would have had this sharp edge digging into your hands as you snapped it, and he still just breaks the knife in half and gives it to the guy. We know that at the fort in Fort Nashboro, when they're building it, they have the 2 column posts up. You got to have that big cross beam across the top. They had it cut, and they were trying to figure out how to get it up there. 2 guys that grabbed each end, and they couldn't even budge it up off the ground. It's a big, heavy beam. And so they were there, several people trying to figure out, okay, we'll get a hoist, we'll lift it up over this, we'll do that. And they said Bigfoot comes out of the woods. He would come see these people and trade and then leave back again. And they said he walked over and said, what do y'all do? And they said, well, we got a hoist and figured out how to get it. And the man just reaches down, picks up the log, and deadlifts it over his head and goes, y'all nail it where you need to. What, two grown men couldn't even budge off the ground. There's going to be two different times. Fort Nashboro is going to be surrounded by Native Americans in a siege where no food is getting in and out, and they're trying to starve them out. And they said two different times now, all of a sudden out of the clearing would come Bigfoot Spencer with a deer on each shoulder. Is anybody getting that? Is that my head blowing right there? How heavy a deer would be, and you throw one over each shoulder. They said the Native Americans parted like a sea, and dude just comes walking through with two deer like this, and the Native Americans were scared to death of him. They would not mess with him. And they said he comes right through, and they all part. He goes to the door, throws down two deer, turn around, walk back out, and the Native Americans all parted again. They actually would have people follow him because they were scared of what he could do. And so anytime he was long hunting, there were natives in that area following him the whole time. Other instances of things that cool. One time he gets trapped over here during the winter instead of making it back over, and dude just crawls up in a hollow sycamore tree and spends the winter kind of hibernating like a bear. Come out, kill something, eat it, crawl back in the log until weather was good enough to take his furs over the mountains again. Just a mountain of a man that has got strength we can't even begin to understand. They said that one time at Fort Nashboro, he shows up and he gets into an argument with somebody, which that's a stupid man to argue with Bigfoot Spencer. I'm just saying right now, that is not a smart man. And they said, now we know how high the walls were in Fort Nashboro because we have a replica of it and we have descriptions. It was just a little over 8 foot tall, the walls. Bigfoot Spencer gets mad at this man. A grown man reaches out, grabs him with two hands, and chucks him up and over the wall. They said at this point, everybody in the fort was like, oh, scared to death. It got dead quiet. And they said then, all of a sudden they hear from the outside, the man that got thrown over say, I ain't going back in there. Bigfoot, can you throw my horse out to me? And they said everybody started laughing at that point and then the tension eased and everything calmed down. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think he could have thrown the horse out, but he would have came dang close. I'm just saying. I mean, holy moly, what a mountain of a man. So these guys are coming in long hunting, and what you're going to see then is, I'm almost to my 25-minute mark, so I'm going to stop here in a second. You're going to see in 1715, the English start coming over here and trading with them. It's smart. Instead of coming over here and hunting, bring a bag of axes. Come over here and I'll trade you 5 deer skin for 1 axe. And then I'm going to get just as much deer skin as you could have gotten in 6 months. Go back and trade again and then come back and trade some more. This is a problem with the fact of you don't know where the trader is going to be. You don't know when he's going to be there. And you also worried about the safety of it, because if I'm trading with you, people could attack us, steal the bag of axes, steal my deer skin, and go. So this is where you have a man by the name of William Bean for the first time come into Tennessee and build a cabin. He would then travel over, bring back axes, pots, pans, and stuff like that, and trade with the Cherokee from his house. This made a secure location where they felt safe to trade, and it also was a constant, if you get enough deer skins, there's where you go. And they knew where it was, when they could go, all these things. And it made the Cherokee very happy, and that's why they began asking over and over, will you build us a fort? The French come over 1726. They start to trade with the Cherokee. But then 1737, the Chickasaw begin to trade with the French out in what is today Memphis. And there is a skirmish with the Chickasaw and the French, and then the French build a fort. And once again, now you have a secure trading place. And so the French felt very comfortable then there, and the Chickasaw felt comfortable. You know who doesn't feel comfortable? The Cherokee on our side, because they don't have a fort. And that's what we're going to pick up tomorrow. The Cherokee then keep asking, build us a fort, build us a fort. And in 1757, the French and Indian War starts in 1755. So we are in the French and Indian War. Chief Little Carpenter, a Cherokee chief in this area, goes to the English and says, hey, we'd like you to build us a fort. And they say no. He says, you know what? It'd be great if the Cherokees sided with the French. And we say, yes, we'll build you a fort. We were happy to build a fort so we don't lose the Cherokee. And that is Fort Loudon. And that's where we will pick up tomorrow. I will see you then. Thank you.